thank you very much for taking the time to join us on Industry Insider. Please share this with your friends. As you're sharing, I want to give you a little bit of background on the show. Carrie and I, both of us, have been in the car business about 20 years. We love the car business, as does TrueCar, and we wanted to create an environment to help our dealers and people who are just in the industry who are not necessarily our dealers just get a little bit better and move forward. So that's why we put together Industry Insider dealer-to-dealer conversations, where we would create a platform for movers and shakers in the auto industry to talk to dealers. Now, this is a dealer speaking to another dealer, and it's kind of unique in this space. So really, we think you're going to enjoy this. So we're on week 3, right, Carrie?
Yeah, and Matt, I got to hurry up and share this right now because I want to get as many people on as possible. But Matt, what have you got out of our couple of shows so far? I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
The first one, we had Jeremy Allen, GM of Gary Yeoman's Ford in Florida, and he explained to us how he was able to have like almost no dip in business. And a lot of it came from mindset, a lot of it came from new processes. But I love that he was able to manage COVID because of some of the things that his dealership had done prior, and it kind of set him up for success there. And of course, speaking with Ali was, a salesperson's dream. What about you? What have been your takeaways so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's just been resilience. And I think for the most part, people, even in this COVID situation, have really stuck by what has guided their success all along, right? They've gone back to the basics. And I think that's been really important when we talked to Jeremy, when we talked to Ali. I mean, they kept on doing what they were doing and just made kind of slight adjustments to see success. So it's been pretty awesome to interview all of these people. So we're going to jump in. But before we jump in, I just want to do a shout out to the TrueCar dealers out there and just make sure that you're aware of all the things that are going on. If you go to our TrueCar dealer blog, we actually have some COVID promotions that can help you during this time. So whether it be billing concessions or, complimentary products through the month of July. So go to TrueCar.com/dealer blog and you'll see a COVID section on the site. I also just want to announce that we launched TrueCar Military this week, right? So this is a site for military service members, veterans, and their families. And it enables our dealers to connect with that large audience. I think there's over 45 million people that are veterans, service members, and families. So you can go to TrueCar.com/dealer/military to learn more about that. And so we're going to jump on in. And today's show, we want to talk about the importance of people and positivity. And that's something that dealers have embraced in auto retail. And then there's been other dealers that haven't embraced that as much. And at this time where we're going through the COVID pandemic, we're kind of hopefully moving out of it. People and positivity is really, really, really important. So Matt, tell us about our guest.
Well, today's guest is Stephen Mason. He is the GM of Iron City Ford in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, Stephen is an amazing leader. He has always been very successful throughout his time in the industry. But listen to this though. Even in these challenging times, now Stephen has always thrived in adversity, but even in these challenging times, he has found a way to lead his store to a nearly 200% increase in sales year over year, April to April. Now, in any environment, that's special, but in a COVID environment, that's monumental. And his overall success is due in part to his extreme focus on growing his people and also his optimistic view of the world. So we wanted to talk to him today about the power of optimism, the power of people, and we're going to hear his philosophies and some of his keys to success. So if we can, we'd like to introduce and welcome Industry Insider, Stephen Mason.
All right, let's see if we can add him in. Stephen, are you there?
Hey, everybody, how are y'all doing?
Doing great. Thank you for being time with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Absolutely, Stephen. It's so great to have you on. And in full disclosure, you're not only a client, you're also a friend. So we're going to have some fun here and not make it too serious.
Let's all get loose.
Yes, let's get loose. I know Matt met you at NADA. He first met you at NADA. I feel like I might have met you a year ago or so. And I shouldn't say met you. I virtually met you online.
Correct.
And I know you've been in the business for a while, and I want to get your background in a second. But for me, you just kind of came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden, I'm seeing this guy posting on LinkedIn, and two things stood out. Number one, I feel like half your posts weren't about you; they were about somebody else, somebody you mentored, somebody who started, in fast food or working at a grocery store, and now all of a sudden, like they're the GSM or finance director. So like that stood out for me. And two, you always had these optimistic posts, so here I am, I'm feeling bad about myself. I'm having a bad day. And all of a sudden I read your post and I'm like, you know what? Things aren't really that bad. So that's what stood out for me. So before we jump in, like, give us a little background. How long have you been in the auto business? What's your role now? And how did you get into auto retail?
So I've been in the business since around 97. I got in the business, and listen, I'm very open about this. I got in the business fresh out of divorce, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was a very good car washer growing up and washed cars at Waterworks Car Wash during, high school. And I had heard about a man that would sit in a restaurant daily and eat lunch in the Caverns Inn in Bernie, Texas, where I lived. And so, I went in and got in front of him and asked him for a job washing cars. And not long after that, he gave me a job washing cars. And, give or take 3 weeks into it, he said, "Hey, listen, you're just too nice to wash cars." And that's not an exaggerated statement. He said, "You're selling yourself way short." He goes, "I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a job selling cars. I'm going to pay you $2,000 a month guaranteed for 3 months straight. And if it doesn't work out, you can go back to washing cars. And if you go back to washing cars, I'm going to give you $1 raise an hour." And I'm sitting there going, that's more money than I'm ever going to make in my lifetime. $2,000 a month. I was like Dave Chappelle. I'm rich. So I took the job, and it's really, really a pretty good story. Back then we had what was called the blue laws. You were either open Saturday or Sunday, but not both. So I came up with this idea on the weekends because I was only selling about 7 or 8 cars a month, and I was just barely making it. Our dealership was closed on Saturdays and open on Sundays. That seems weird, but it was the best schedule in the world. Everybody during the week, the store closed at 7 p.m. On Friday, it closed at 7 p.m. and opened back up on Sunday at noon. So everybody was off Saturday, and during the week, we were all out of there at 7. Best schedule in the world. Well, I came up with this idea that on Saturdays, I would go up there, and I hate to show my age, but I'm going to. I would sit up there on Saturday with an igloo and a big thing of Country Time lemonades. I know y'all remember those.
Yeah.
And hand out business cards and Country Time lemonades. When I say show my age, bottled water didn't exist. There was no bottled water. It was Country Time lemonade in those brown and yellow cans. I would open up cars for customers. I would let them look at them. I couldn't test drive them. That was against the law. I would let them look, give them my business card. But the one thing I always sold? I always sold me. Yeah. I've always sold it. Right now I sell it. So my thing was always, people would start asking, because when you have manners, you can go a long way. And they would start asking, "Hey, what are you doing up here on the weekend?" I said, "Listen, I'm divorced. I've got a 5-month-old baby. I'm trying to figure out." I had this judge sit in front of me and tell me, "By the way, you got child support, and if you don't pay it, you got to go to jail." And I'm sitting there going, I got to figure out a way to pay child support and provide for myself. And I would tell them my story, and I'll tell you what happened. My Sundays became 3 and 4 car days. Oh. And that was the way that it was. And it all worked out for me. But it worked out because I was not afraid to work. I was never afraid to work, and I was never afraid to be completely transparent with people about what was going on in my world. You
Right.
know, it was really, really, really simple to me once I realized that people didn't need a salesperson. They needed somebody who was willing to assist them with their decision and basically, I mean, I hate to say this, basically be the mule. They already knew what they wanted. They just needed somebody to carry it. So go ahead.
Well, so I wanted to, like, one of the topics that we were going to talk about was about your philosophies.
Okay.
Right? We want to talk about your philosophies around people and positivity. And it sounds like right up front, you just dropped your philosophy was never to hide anything. It was always to be transparent and to be upfront with your consumers. So let's talk about, like, as a GM running a store that's running really wild, how are you sharing that philosophy with your people?
So what a great question that is. So I don't know that you ever, and a lot of people do this. I don't know, Matt, that you ever share the philosophy. I think that you are the philosophy. So if I'm leading my store in a way that I'm always letting my people know how much I appreciate them, and I'm always, my rule of thumb is that I'm going to walk through my store every single day and say hello and talk to every single employee at least once. Well, I mean, positive energy is still transferred between people. So then you start mixing that in with just the guidelines of how you're going to do business. And I'll give you a really good idea. We don't have problems in our store in regards to, I promised a customer a second key and now they're calling like crazy and they can't reach the salesperson. Because if you lie to a customer in my store, you won't be here. Now, that's not meant to be a threatening statement because, they used to say, Jimmy Johnson, the old football coach, said we made our living a choice of words. And he said, I never, ever told Emmitt Smith not to fumble, but I always told him to hold on to the ball. And I agree with that completely. So what I say to people is, listen, don't overpromise. Don't overpromise and do everything in writing. Everything. Listen, if Matt comes in and buys a car from me and says, I just need one rubber floor mat, not 3, I need 1. There better be a piece of paper that says that. And I'm sorry, that's just process oriented results is all that is. That's us following what we do down to the ladder to make sure that we're doing everything right, because customers as a whole, they feel better when you put it in writing anyway.
Yeah, that's what they're trained to hear, right?
Yeah, they want to see it in writing, and then they know that they've got all the control.
Yeah.
So it's really simple. So I don't have issues with turnover, and I don't have issues with guys telling somebody, oh, yeah, I'll take care of that for you. Just call me tomorrow. Doesn't work. Doesn't work here at all.
You put it in paper. You put it on paper.
Yeah, and as far as, I have that 300% rule. We're going to say hello to 300% of the people, 100% of the time, 100% of the time they walk through the door. And that's just the way it's going to be. Somebody walks in my door, they're going to get greeted. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And they're going to get greeted quickly because that's the initial dialogue. And people are going to feed off of how you act towards them when they walk in.
So speaking of walking in, let's talk about the sales environment that you were dealing with in the face of COVID. I mean, like, everybody's markets were different, right? Were you guys, like, some people were fully open, some people were open with restrictions, some people were closed. What was the retail and sales environment in your local market? Like, and how did it impact your store? Like, we need to understand that so we understand how you talk to people. So
I agree with what you're saying, Matt, in terms of the environments. The one thing that I'll focus on is I'll focus on environments as a whole, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So certainly COVID has affected everyone. But the main thing I've seen through all this is a true instability from dealers and individuals to follow their own process versus being affected by news media. And I'm sorry that I feel that way, but listen, what we did here was, everybody asked me, hey, what did you do during COVID? I'll tell you exactly what we did. We kept doing what we've always done. We just were smarter about it. I hope you appreciate that statement. Of course, we enforced a policy where it was much, much more of a social distancing policy. Of course. But when I hear people talk all the time about now we have to, we have to deliver cars, that's definitely true in a lot of major markets, because I have a very good friend of mine in New Jersey that was basically just shut down completely. Here, we never, ever, ever got shut down. And the reason I talk about the news media is the amount of dealerships here that stopped selling cars based on what they were hearing versus what was accurate. It kind of blew me away. You drive up and down the parkway and there's dealerships that are shut down and they don't need to be. They're not even being told to be. But then, because of the world we live in now, because it's such a social media world, you have to also fear the backlash. And the backlash is pretty terrible that, you're bringing your salespeople in and you're endangering their lives. How many times have we heard a business is open that's endangering somebody's life? Have y'all heard it a lot?
Yeah. And how do you,
and
what do you say to that?
Well, I'll tell you what I say is I have a salesperson looking at me in the face. Customers are still wanting to buy cars. And he's trying to make a living just like I was 23 years ago. Now I have a leading moment, and anybody can say what they want, and they can call me a poor leader, they think, for jeopardizing his life by having him come in. It was his decision. He wanted to be here. Every single person was given an option on whether they wanted to be here or not. We went to a fully enforced mask policy. We went to a fully enforced social distancing policy, but we never stopped working. Because at the end of the day, no matter what anybody talks about, the amount of focus they put on social distancing and shutting people down, if they're not careful, will not outweigh the number of small businesses that go bankrupt because they just couldn't maintain any longer. And I'm sorry that that's such a tough balance, but somebody has to make that decision. And I'm passionate and animated about it. Our decision was we are going to be open because we have not been told to close.
But in a safe way. I mean, you're definitely taking precautions. And what about your people, though? Like, I'm assuming that there were your consumer traffic might have gone down. Did you have to make adjustments in your staffing or how you were managing your people?
So that's another great question. And I don't hear enough people talking about that also. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody out there, and like I say, I try not to focus on the news and what the news says, but I do want to focus on the positives, Carrie, because people need to hear the positives. Let me tell you the positives, no matter what anybody says. There's a huge percentage of businesses out there that have laid off people that unfortunately were not productive anyway. They just weren't productive. They were there. I hate to say it. Sometimes I call them space eaters. They're there and they're taking up space, but they're not moving your needle. And we all have them. So now what we have been faced with is, okay, shouldn't it in fact be easier to manage a smaller group of people? I mean, think about it. If you're, and I said this the other day, I said it to you, if I'm a teacher or if I'm a person and I'm sending my kid to school and my kid goes to class and he has two options. He can go to one class teaching English where there's 105 students, and he can go to another class where there's 15 students. Which class do you think he's going to get the better education?
The smaller one. Of
course, because you get to focus on less kids to do more. So what is the difference for everybody out there who talks about massive layoffs with focusing on less people? Every single time and every single minute you focus on the people that you laid off, you're absolutely disrespecting the ones you kept. And I'm sorry, that's like going on a date and talking about your ex. It doesn't make sense. I mean, all you're doing is the date you're in front of. She's like going, geez, he won't stop talking about I certainly hate the fact I had to lay people off. Everybody did. But it doesn't take away from the fact that in the face of that, it is still my job and everyone else out there to lead the people who are in front of you. That's it.
Were you asking more of them, though? Sorry,
yes,
Matt.
100%. I was asking more of them. Yes. And they had to deliver more. And they did a great job delivering more. Our results were way up with far less people. And what you get at the end of this is you get Carrie, you talked originally about my post, and my posts are always, hey, you can do more. You got more in you. I've said that 100 times. There's an easy road and a hard road. Which road do you take? You always take the hard road. This has been the hard road. And yeah, it's been tough for everyone. But at the end of it, everybody who makes it through this is going to be so much stronger. And that's just my opinion. I just think that's the world, and that's the way I'm always going to feel about it. There's nothing in my life or your life or Matt's life that we haven't ever achieved that was great without having to battle to get there. And that's just the way it is. That's where I'm at.
What did you, like you said earlier that you asked a little bit more from your salespeople. So what we've seen with some of the other people that we've talked to is like, I think Jeremy Allen talked about, he really encouraged his people to go do deliveries, right?
Sure.
We've seen other people who are now, because like staffing is smaller or lower at the store, they're taking on like additional responsibilities, not just working harder, doing more follow-up, but like, was there any extra responsibilities or any extra like mandates that your salespeople had like in this that they didn't have prior that like, help move this process?
I always love the questions. So Matt, as strange as this sounds, the answer to that is no, but let me elaborate a little bit. Okay, so my only requirement for my salespeople and my managers was we're going to have to get extremely, extremely granular in our process to sell cars. Mm-hmm. How many times do you think I've heard in the last month and a half of people saying, okay, now we better get into the delivery business. This is going to change the way we do business forever. Things are changing now. Listen, this is going to modify the way we do business forever. But the car business will always be the car business. And I'm going to tell you something. When September 11th happened of 2001, the only thing that it really, really changed a lot was whether we were going to start charging for luggage or not. And then in September of 2008, they went full-fledged, start charging for luggage. But it didn't stop people from flying. And this is not going to stop people from coming on our lot. So though I appreciate when people say, hey, yes, we're going now to deliver cars, I have to be sensitive with that answer because in some markets, they didn't have a choice. Like I said, if you're in Jersey and you're not open at all and you're doing everything you can to survive, then you're delivering cars and doing everything you can. And I call that out of the box thinking, and I commend those dealers for doing that in the face of this adversity.
Absolutely.
Having said that, for us, the only thing we focused on was how granular are we going to get? Here's what I know for sure, Matt, unlike times past, that nobody talks about. What if I told you that in my personal opinion, COVID made it easier for me to sell cars? Can I explain?
What do you mean by that?
Like that, you better explain.
You better explain.
All right. Who in the world's coming into a dealership during the COVID crisis?
Oh, yeah, right.
Are they coming in just to listen? Are they coming in just to look around?
Yeah, no, they're serious buyers. That's true.
So I always say to people all the time, I don't think at times as leaders that we really, really think about what we're saying. And I'll tell you what I mean. So I tell my people all the time, on your day off, would you do me a big favor? And they go, yeah. And I go, would you go to a car dealership and go through the process? And they're like, why? And I'm like, just to do it. It's my day off. Okay, so let me get this right. Nobody goes into a car dealership for nothing. It's not like walking to the mall.
Right.
So people are coming here anyway, but now they're coming in here through a major pandemic of epic proportions. What do you think they're here to do? So now what is it our job to do? What did I say earlier, Matt? Listen, they already know what they want. We got to be the mule.
Yeah.
We got to be willing to carry them to it and have manners and do everything right and facilitate their transaction, and everything should get easier.
I love that.
That's all we've done.
I love that. And I want to talk about marketing, but I love we have to be the mule because it represents that you're serving.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
It's that you're not controlling the deal. Like, many sales process training is like control the customer, control the deal. When you say we have to be the mule, I think of you're serving. That's like 100% you're serving.
If you're going to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, we got to be the guy carrying everything, if you know what I mean. Because at the end, I got to tell you something. When you get to the bottom, everybody remembers the mule. No matter what, everybody remembers the mule.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's talk about marketing.
Sure.
So during this COVID time, a lot of dealers were cutting their marketing or backing away from the marketing. And so how did you think of marketing during this pandemic?
Increased it.
No.
Increased it for the month of March and kept my spend the same for the month of April. And I'll tell you something. There's a dealer guru in San Antonio, Texas that I worked for a long, long time ago. And he was extremely wise and still has, I think, God, I don't know. I bet he has 23, 24 stores in San Antonio to this day. And his big thing was, during a crisis, never let your foot off advertising, because everybody panics. That's so tough. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean there's something to panic about, but there's a difference between running around panicking and running around with controlled panic. And so what I chose to do was increase my spend, but then renegotiate with my vendors. Mm-hmm. And I hope that makes sense. And I know y'all working for TrueCar, I know you understand that, because I'm quite certain people have reached out to y'all and say, hey, listen, can we negotiate our rate? There's no difference at all. We negotiated rate, but increased spend. And that doesn't mean that we spent our way through it. That just means that we didn't do and follow the line that everybody else followed, because I'm not going to be that guy. I'm never going to let the tail wag the dog. I can't.
Right.
I refuse to be anything other than what I am. And I'm just not going to run in the face of bad times, because I think everybody else is running, and somebody has to stand up and say, okay, what should we do? You have no idea how many of my employees, and this is so humbling, have come up to me and said, thank you so much for what you've done to this place in the last 2 months. They've all made more money. They've all made more money. So let me get this right. I talk about dealerships up and down the parkway that were closed, but we weren't, because we were never told we had to close. So I made a decision that directly affected my employees' livelihoods who sell cars for a living. And I have them daily come up and talk to me, and they'll say, man, what you've done the last 2 months, man, you never stop. You never stop. You never stop. But I wonder if anybody realizes, from a leadership standpoint, I work for them. It's my job to never stop, because if I go to sleep at night, or anybody else who runs a store goes to sleep at night, and you're comfortable knowing that your salespeople are not able to make a living, then you ought to get out of the business. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I work for them.
I go to sleep at night knowing that in the face of all this, I never, ever, ever let my people down. And I didn't, at the end of the day, let myself down, let Ford down, let my owner down. I never let anyone down, because I just refused to let myself down. And that's just the basis by which I'm formed.
Awesome.
See, that is that optimism. That is that optimism. I love what you're saying, like how you just kept your foot on the gas, and you just kept doing what you were doing because of your responsibility to the owner, to the brand, to you. Even though you were continuing to do what you were doing, were there changes in your sales process?
So no, there wasn't. There was not changes in my sales process. We stayed our course. And I'm going to touch back on something, if y'all don't mind. Again, every single time I see somebody talking, saying that the business has changed forever and things will never be the same, and we're going to have to change the way we do things. Hold on. There's a difference between evolution and change. Okay, the car business continues to evolve. And because of that evolution, we'll continue to change our processes. But every single time I see somebody talking about this has changed things forever, you don't realize the message you're sending to your people. The message you're sending to our people is, well, what does that mean for me? Because they're salesmen and they get paid by selling cars. They're going home thinking, okay, am I going to have another customer tomorrow? What am I going to do? My message has always been the same, and it will continue to be the same. The business is changing. We're going to continue to change and evolve with it, but we will never, ever, ever stop assisting customers and providing a quality service that is unrivaled. And that's where we're going to be.
Stephen, let me jump in here because we have a couple questions that have come in and people want to really dig in on this whole sales process question.
Sure.
So I get you're saying like, look, for the most part, we haven't changed our process, but did you have to change, for example, like the test drive? You know, maybe someone doesn't want to be as close. Like, how did you handle your demo drive or, you know, particularly with social distancing? Did you have to make an adjustment there?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
So, and that is a fantastic, fantastic question, because what we did, Carrie, believe it or not, was we gave the customer the option on whether they wanted to go with us on the demo drive or not. Believe it or not, it was the first time in history that, hey, listen, if Carrie and her husband come into my dealership and they look at me and tell my salesperson, hey, listen, I hope you don't mind, we'd rather do the demo drive without you, we're going to a strict BVA. We gave them that option all the time. If that wasn't the case, we still participated in wearing masks and covering our wheels and wearing gloves all the time. And we didn't have a choice on that, because that also, and it's such a good question, but that's a perception thing also. You have to let the customer know that you're thinking about their well-being as much as you want to sell an automobile. Right. That's a great question once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about you know, evaluating someone's trade, or what about the customer that doesn't want to come in the store? Did you have any adjustments where you go to their home if that was the case?
So and it's very, very strange. Yes.
Okay.
So I'd be lying if I told you there are certainly customers we couldn't get in the store. And it was so strange to me, the amount of customers that would call us up and they were very interested in my car and shopping, but said they weren't coming in right now. I can't fix those, because everybody in the car business knows you can't. I mean, that's like fixing the consumer that walks on your lot in November and says, hey, listen, I'm interested in buying, but I'm not doing anything till September next year. You know, you still have those 5%ers. The same thing on the telephone or by email saying, hey, listen, I'm interested in the car, but I'm not coming in right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that math works. I'd be lying if I did. If you're interested in the car, how are you thinking about coming in? Can we bring it to your house? No, I don't want anybody around me right now. I hope you understand. Absolutely, I understand. But at some point, you have to draw a fine line with your salesperson and say, hey, listen, don't get me wrong, keep in contact with this person, but you got nothing going on right now, because they don't want to come here and they don't want you to come there. And I won't allow my people hardly to sell a car without at least showing the car. I think that's bad business, and it takes away from customer service. Here, Carrie, buy this $30,000 vehicle. And by the way, I'll drop it off this evening and you're good to go. Doesn't work that way. I mean, we still have a demo process.
Got it. That makes sense. Matt?
Oh, I was thinking about I want to hear about your customers. So would you say by and large they were comfortable coming in? Like that's just great. Like I guess everybody's performing differently in different markets. You know, some people are scared to go out, like put a foot outside of their door. Some people are like, I want to go hang out on the beach and put my suntan lotion on. So I'm always interested to hear how, like, you know, how people are just relating differently, even when it comes to buying a car. So do you think, like, going forward, like when I hear about the touchless test drive, for example, I can't think of a better name for it, but we'll call it a touchless test drive and things like that. Do you think any of those have a place in a non-COVID world going forward?
So I believe that those things were coming anyway. And we spoke about this. Carrie, if you remember it was at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Oh yeah.
Where, what was his name? The older gentleman that I loved him to death, and all of a sudden I can't remember his name. Talked about the evolution of the car business. Was it Jim?
Jim Press.
Jim Press talked about, you know, there's so much evolution now and so much change. And really what I see happening, Matt, is I see a world at some point to where, regardless of whether this happened or not, listen, people more and more were going towards a system and philosophy where salespeople didn't exist as much. And it was almost an Amazon type system for automobiles. You know, it was a It was a delivered to your door in 3 days type of deal, and I'll take the car because it's the car I want, and I've done my research.
Mhm.
So when you ask me about touchless test drive, yes, 100%, those things are coming. My only thing that I tell everybody else is, I think we're a long way removed from, and I could be wrong. Man, I'm wrong every day, all the time. But I think we're a long way removed from those things coming. And I can only speak for myself, Matt. I can't speak for you. Can't speak for you, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm buying my son a car today for high school, and that car is 11.9, of course I'm going to try to negotiate the price. But how do I negotiate a price without driving the car?
Yeah.
Because what's selling the car? Just the car? That doesn't work that way. It doesn't make sense. I mean, now you're telling me to go to Best Buy and buy a TV without looking up on their wall and looking at it, because everybody does that.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that we're always going to exist, and I think the two are going to exist together. But I think it's a long way removed from, I'm not going to spend my money. And like I said, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not going to spend my money on anything without knowing exactly what I'm buying. And so maybe they could tell me, hey, you know what? Though you're not driving the car, we offer a 30-day money-back guarantee and whatnot. I don't want that. I'm not buying something to deal with the guarantee of giving it back. I'm buying it to deal with buying it. So nobody focuses on that at all, because I'll tell you something. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but Netflix has changed everything. But a couple of years ago, Redbox was really hot. Y'all remember Redbox?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, none of us ever were happy about returning a video. True or not true?
True.
How the hell do you think we feel about returning a $12,000 car? We don't even like returning a $2 video. I mean, really, what are we talking about here?
No, but so to play devil's advocate,
okay,
there, don't you think though there could be a segment of customers that maybe they wouldn't do everything online, but they might want to do pieces online, right?
100%.
Like, okay.
Sure.
So we're on the same page. Because I'll just be honest. When I bought my car, I actually did not care to test drive the car. And I know that's embarrassing to say. Now, I ended up doing it. It was a new car, and I ended up test driving it at the very last minute, just so that if something went wrong, I wouldn't feel stupid, like the car broke down. But at the end of the day, I'd already driven my model before, and I just felt like I bought a reputable brand, and I was like, you know what, worst comes to worst, it's under warranty. I don't really even need to test. I know what I'm getting already.
So I agree with you 1,000%. Gary. I just think that the two can coexist.
Yes, I agree.
That's my opinion, because I think, I just think that everybody wants to talk about the fact that that's the way the world is going. But hey, listen, there's a huge difference between Steve buying an abdominizer on Amazon to work on my stomach muscles and buying a $12,000 automobile. One represents a sizable investment.
I mean, this quarantine's got me. I need an abdominizer.
I'm gonna send you one. I'm gonna do it.
All I want is hair color. That's all I want. All I want for Christmas during the quarantine is hair color. I need my hairstylist and my nail salon.
Best.
Okay, we need to jump forward because we are running out of time, and I want to get to two different topics still.
Okay.
So we got optimism. I want to talk about optimism, and then we got to save time for people. So Matt, we're going to blow through optimism, but you're probably one of the most optimistic people I've ever met.
Thank you.
And
I have my mother to thank for that.
Oh, good. I actually do too. My mom was very optimistic as well. Like, and you're right. It does kind of pass on to you.
Yes.
But why do you think optimism is so important to your success? And how do you keep that positive mindset even when things are going bad?
So all of us have worked for people that showed us ways that maybe we wanted to manage, or maybe ways that we didn't. Mm-hmm. I think that I've done a great job over the years of, and like I said, when I say great job, I'm not speaking with an arrogant tone. I've done a great job of realizing the things that I could do better than some of the people who were managing me. And then I've done a great job of seeing some of the things they did much better than me and trying to learn those things. Mm-hmm. So you can learn everything you want about the car business, but it's real tough to teach optimism unless you're an optimist.
Right on.
So we're also lucky. And I try to say that and not sound like I'm a Pentecostal preacher, but you know, we all sit here and talk about how bad things are, but man, we have roof over our heads. We get to wake up. Hopefully our families are healthy. We're doing everything we can. You just have a decision to make every single morning. And I preach this to everybody. And I hope if nobody gets anything else from this today, I hope they get this. Every single morning when you wake up, you have a decision right then and right there to make. It's either going to be a good day or a bad day, but that's your decision. Nobody else can make that decision for you. It's good or bad. And listen, and I say it all the time because you'll never catch me in a bad mood, ever. And I say all the time, and I hope I don't offend anybody. They say, how do you manage? You know, don't you ever have? Listen, you can't be half pregnant. You're either in or out on this deal as far as I'm concerned. You're either going to make a decision to be as positive as you can, or you're not going to be, because the minute you deviate from it, you have now set an example of instability within your environment. And now you have salespeople walk around saying, I wonder what kind of mood the boss is going to be in today. Nobody will ever, ever, ever tell you, well, that's Steve Mason's the moodiest guy I've ever met. And I don't mind telling you something, Kerry. We've spoken enough times, and Matt, you've spoken to me enough. You'll just never see me in a bad mood, ever. And you know, and listen, man, I got a special needs son I talk about all the time, and not to change the subject. And I hear all these amazing stats about people who have special needs children and the amount of them that they have such a hard time functioning in life. And I put a different spin on everything. You know, without sounding overly religious, God gave me that child because he knew I could handle it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a situation where he was punishing me. I hate when people say that. I think it's such a terrible spin on it. He gave me that joker because he knew I could handle it, because I can handle anything. So I think that has to funnel its way through your entire store if you're going to develop the right culture within your store. But you have to be that positive leader. And that is a day-to-day job from start to finish. You have to, hey, listen, this morning, man, I had a meeting with my body shop, and I got into everybody. And I walked out. And 15 minutes later, I walked back in and said, I need y'all to know something. I may get on you, but it's because I want the best for you. And I will not rest until your paycheck doubles.
Yeah.
What do you think they get from that? They get, hey, man, this guy's going to get into me, but he's always got my back. And that's all I care about. It's never about me. Never. I could care less. I'll sleep in a box and buy salespeople and my people eat. I don't care.
Awesome.
So we're talking about salespeople. So I love your optimism. I think that we're lucky in this conversation. I think all three of us truly and genuinely are optimists.
Yes.
By the way, Matt, you got a shout out on your optimism for Martha Alvarado. She says Matt always cheers me up with his optimism.
I love Martha. She's awesome.
I appreciate that. You made my day.
Yes.
But I want to
Martha.
I want to ask you something. Like we know that it's. I can't overstate this enough, and I don't want to belabor it, but this market has been tough on a lot of people, right? It's been tough on a lot of people in automotive. Fortunately, some of my friends here in Southern California, they've been able to get back to work. I'm seeing it on Facebook. They're cheering. You know, May 1st, they were able to go back, but I don't know that everybody's got that. So how do we how do we keep people optimistic who have been, you know, maybe who furloughed, or maybe they've been removed from their store? What advice would you give those people who may find today like a struggle?
Are we talking about people who are no longer employed?
Yeah. Maybe they've been laid off, furloughed during this time.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell you this. I have numerous employees that I laid off that I'm not prepared to bring back yet, but I maintain contact with them every single week. So then we're down again to the same thing. You know, I got a message the other day from one of my guys that I had furloughed, and I said, hey, listen, you know, just checking on you, whatnot. So the message back to me was the message that meant the most was, I really, really, really appreciate you checking on me.
Hmm.
That's all, because Matt, that's all we can do. As soon as we think we can lose a sense for what they're going through, then you're failing. That's the most important 10 or 15-second text message of the day. Hey, how are you doing? I was thinking about you right now. Are you okay?
Right.
Doesn't mean you can fix their problem, but it doesn't matter. I mean,
But
man,
you can be
getting in my life at times, there were times when I didn't really have anybody I could reach out to and say, hey, man, I want to talk. I was on my own. And so I try to stray from being that guy. I want them to know that they can always reach out to me. And I'll help them find another job if they decide not to come back here. I have no problem with that at all. It's just the initial 15, 20-second thought and shout out to them that makes all the world of difference.
Absolutely. Let's talk about people right now. Let's shift to people.
Okay.
And, you have really, especially on social, you can just tell that you've spent a lot of time mentoring people. And, that's so important because the people at your dealership, they represent your brand. They're your brand promise to the consumers. And so how you treat them kind of passes on to customers. So, and you've mentored several people, and I think you have a knack for really identifying talent, almost like a diamond in the rough that you can identify and grow people's careers. So why has mentorship been so important for you as a leader? Why is that important to you?
Because, and once again, without sounding overly religious, at the end of the day, when I leave this world, I won't be judged on my accomplishments. I'll be judged on other people, what I was able to help them do, and they in turn build my accomplishments. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a rule of thumb that all I focus on is people doing the very best they can. That it's really, really, really so simple. But even right now, Carrie, in today's time, everybody talks about the crisis and everybody talks about how things have changed, but you hardly ever hear anybody talk about, okay, this is what's going on with our people. Listen, my business, your business, everybody, we're only going to be successful if we continue to help the people around us become successful. And that's the recipe. That's the secret sauce. Everybody, I really, really appreciate what you tell me, but I can't define doing something that I feel like I was meant to do in this world, whether it be mentoring Kiera Flanagan, and I'm so proud of her now, or whether it be mentoring Julio Martinez, who was a porter of mine. It was always my responsibility to do that. When I signed up to be a leader, that was my job. I thought that my job as a leader is to build people around me and make sure that they understand. And I'm sorry, I always talk about Julio Martinez, and it's my greatest accomplishment in that he calls me still at times and he'll say, oh, I couldn't have done it without you. Well, he's mistaken. Sure, he could. He just never had anybody tell him he could. Yeah. It was just my job to make sure that he knew he could. And then every bit of his success, and Carrie, I love that mentoring, but every bit of their success is based on their want and their ability. Yeah. Never, ever mine. I just refused to let anyone down. And I refuse to let anyone down now. Hey, listen, I got to tell you something, Carrie, and everybody out there is going to think this is crazy. You or Matt. If you called me up tonight at 12:30 and said, hey, I got a problem. I need somebody to pick me up by Friday in California and drive me from there to North Carolina by next week. And I don't know what to do. Listen, it may seem strange, but I promise you I'd have somebody at your damn door by Friday.
I know it's true. I can vouch for that.
My salespersons will tell you that they have no problem at all calling me on a Saturday night at 12:30 if they had a customer call them and say, hey, I can only come in right now. I know it's 12:30 at night, but now's the only time I can come in. Can you meet me at the store? They would have no problem calling me up because they know that I'm going to be there because their livelihood depends on me being able to support what they're doing. I think that goes for me, you, Matt, anybody who assumes a leadership role. There's too much is given, much is required. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
See, I got to jump in real quick. So I think about, you said you got in the car business. You've been in the business 23 years. You still look like a young cat. So when you got into the business, you were a very young cat, right?
Yes.
I got into the business at a very young age also. And a lot of my friends, we call us, we were like a bunch of litter mates. We were like a litter of puppies. We called ourselves.
Right. Sure.
We kind of got into the business around the same time. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not talking about the world, but I will say that there's a segment of, 20-something-year-old men and women who get into dealerships and they are just looking to make a little bit of money, right?
Sure.
They don't know the world. They don't know finance. They don't know credit. They don't know this. They don't know that. But somebody takes them under their wing and says, "Hey, young buck, you got a FICO score of 401. That's not going to help you raise your family. Start moving things up. Or maybe this is how you need to start looking at, your paychecks, or maybe you need to consider doing this." Because so in the car business, one of the things that we love about it is that when they get together, it's very resilient and it's very like nurturing, right? That you've got people like you or people like the folks who hired me who can help put younger people on that right kind of path, right?
Sure.
It's almost like a secondary, it's like a new parent or something, like when you've got somebody who's interested in teaching you and mentoring you. So when you think about the typical dealership, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's like, "Hey boy, go take your tests on the computer, go get yourself certified and get out there and sell me a car." Because we have different types of leadership that exist in this world, right? So thinking of like the typical dealership, where do managers go wrong in terms of leadership when they focus on people? Like we know where people can go good, but where do people go wrong?
So to focus on that question real quick, I got to tell you, before this happened today, Carrie and I talked for a few minutes. She said, "Hey, I'll reach back out to you. I'm doing my hair." I made sure I had I had a nice shirt on. You've got a nice shirt on. I have to tell you something. When somebody walks in, I want you to ask yourself, if you ran an interview right now for somebody to come work at TrueCar, and somebody came in and they were not dressed properly for the interview, how do you think you're helping them by sending them away without talking to them? Right. You have to ask yourself, who's the failure in that case? Is it the manager or is it the individual? Because I got to tell you something, Matt, and I'll address you on this. Young kids who come in and don't know how to dress. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. In the world we live in now, there are 3 generations of people living under one roof. So you could have a 39-year-old woman with a 21-year-old daughter who's got an 11-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. So what in the world makes you think that 21-year-old knew what to do? I mean, with no disrespect, and I'm not in any way stereotyping, but I got to tell you something. When that person walks in my door looking for a job, the only thing that needs to be focused on is, why do they want the job? Yeah. I got to tell you, and I'm not going to say her name, but I'm super proud of her. I got a young lady who works here in my body shop. She's a beautiful young lady. And when interviewing her, she told me flat out, I said, "Why do you want the job?" She goes, "Listen, I have children. I need to feed my kids, and I won't let you down, and I won't let myself down." Okay. Hey, man, hell, you're hired. I can do a lot with you. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, just because somebody doesn't know how to dress doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they don't know. Hey, what if it means that nobody ever showed them? Right. Do you know how many times I've been walking around the mall and somebody walked by me and I'm like, "Man, that is the worst looking outfit I've ever seen." But that's my opinion. It doesn't take away from whether I think they're good, bad, or indifferent. It's just something I wouldn't wear. So I think, Matt, when we make the mistakes are when managers look at people and have expectations for what those people should look like without ever talking to them about it. Right. You don't know. What if you interviewed a guy that had a wrinkled shirt on and his pants looked terrible, and you interviewed him and then he left and you said, "Yeah, man, just the way he looked, that guy, he's not serious about a job." But then what if you dug deeper and said, "I got to tell you something, you really don't look prepared for an interview." And the guy looked at you and said, "Hey, listen, between you and I, man, I'm living on the street doing everything I can, and this was all I had. But if you give me a job, I promise I'll be here on time every day, and I'm trying to change my life, and I need your help." Would it be a different interview then? Absolutely. Right. So I don't think a lot of people go to the great lengths they need to go before hiring somebody, and they all act like they need to hire more people, but they get people in front of them and broom them based on appearance without ever getting to know them. And I get to know everybody. For people who know me, I get to know everybody, all the way down to my cleaning people here. I have their phone numbers. I have no problem at all. A couple of weeks ago, calling the lady who cleans my dealership and said, I need a big favor. Hey, can you come over, man? I'm too busy. Can you braid my son's hair? She's like, yeah, I'll come over. I'm like, okay, well, wear a mask because Wynn's going to go nuts. You got to. And she's like, okay, I'll wear a mask. This is all about people still. And we can all talk about the way the world is now. At the end of the day, none of what's going on right now matters unless you're prepared to make sure your people know they're important.
I love that. And I there's one more question I want to ask you about people. And I have to bring this topic up.
Sure.
As a Black woman.
Sure.
And I think what really drew me to you was not just the post that you made about an employee, but it was a Black woman. And that really drew me to the post because I don't always see people mentoring people that are different than them. And I really think that is a bias that just naturally people have. They gravitate to themselves, right? They see somebody that reminds them of them when they were coming up, and that's the person that they want to mentor, or they see someone that acts like them or has the same interests. And I think the challenge with that is that a lot of people end up getting left out, right? And in a world where, most of our management is white males, and if we're only, mentoring white males, a lot of the segment gets left out, including my segment. And so that's what really attracted me to your post, is that you always had these people that look different from you. And so let's talk about women. Many dealerships that I talk about are challenged at hiring and retaining women, and really just diversity in general, right? And you've succeeded at really hiring women and people that are different from you, and you've invested in them from a mentorship standpoint. What has been your key to success, and what advice would you give to dealerships who say they have a challenge at attracting and retaining women?
So I would say to dealerships out there, and with no disrespect at all, that talk is cheap. It is one thing to say that you want to hire more of a female base, and another thing to really, really, really have positive energy and efforts towards doing that. The young lady you're talking about, I have to mention her name, Kiara Flanagan, because she is a rock star and has done everything in her life. And she came from extremely humble beginnings in Inslee, Alabama, which is a tough area. And she has done it all by just being a beast and not quitting on herself. And what I see a lot of times, Carrie, in women, and once again, I try not to stereotype, but I see such a large base of women that, and with no disrespect to the men that I work with, that are just so strong because of the struggles that they have been through to get where they're at right now. And then you take those people and you teach them a little bit, and they're hungry, and listen, it's over. I mean, and that's really, really, really my opinion. And I have to tell you something. Maybe it's because my relationship later in life has gotten so good with my mother, because I was growing up, my father and I were super, super tight. We still are to this day. But my mother and I certainly talk every day, even though she's a 1,000 miles away. But we have an obligation, once again, to help people, to fix people. That's our job as leaders. And that obligation cannot be gender biased. I mean, you better be all the way in. If you see a young lady that can perform, but she's not performing, then it's your job to tell her how to perform and show her how to perform. And if you can help change her life, then you have just done something amazing. And that goes, like I said, and I appreciate that, Carrie, because that was our initial response. You and I initially started talking, I believe, over that post. But I really didn't do anything. I just saw a young lady who was really, really intelligent that hadn't been given direction. And man, when I gave her direction, that joker ran.
And she's a finance director right now, right?
She is. She's a finance manager right now for my best friend. And she's just and maybe without sounding foolish, because people would never understand, but I look at people like her and I just marvel at what they've done. Or I look at that young lady in my body shop coming to work every day, and I just marvel at somebody who has a lot of responsibility, but who comes to work every day in a good mood and they're positive. That's what we should all strive to look for as employees, or employers, excuse me, in our employees. And that list goes around the block for a lot of people. And I told you last night, Carrie, I love listening to Lila talk, because she's always so positive in regards to women in the workplace. Listen, I have news for everybody. Women are going to become a larger and larger segment of our workplace. And that's a great thing, because I'll tell you something. With no disrespect, I hope a bunch of guys don't beat me up out there. But listen, you give me a woman that's dead set on doing the job and a guy that's dead set on doing the job, I'm going to tell the dude, hey, go home, man. I'm going to take the whole day's work today. Go home. You ain't got no chance. And that's not to be disrespectful, because I'm a guy, but that's like me walking into a dealership as a GM and they're like, okay, well, it's down to you and another candidate. And I say, oh, who's the person I'm competing against? Oh, yeah, it's Carrie Weiss. Hey, listen, it's been I've enjoyed this. You guys take it easy. There's other dealerships out there that don't want to hire women. I'll find one of them.
That is so true. There's so many dealerships that don't want to hire women, and that's a mistake. And I think that's the beauty of you, is that you really are, you're not ordinary, you're extraordinary, and you stand out, and I think I hate to be impressed by, you taking pictures with people that are different than you and you mentoring people. But I got to say, like, that's not the norm. And I think there are people like, is it Kiera, who have talent and are overlooked and just need somebody to give them a shot. And so that's a beautiful thing that you've done that for her.
So if I had to sum myself up for y'all, I would tell you this. Every single time I see a dealer take a picture with a salesperson that sells 20 to 25 cars a month, I'm never going to be that guy. Mm-hmm. I'm much more worried about the guy that's selling 10 cars a month, and how do I get him to a respectable livelihood? The guy that's selling 25 cars a month, he don't need me. He's got it figured out. But that joker on the bottom of the board, he needs some help, because he's trying to feed a wife and children, pay his light bill and his cell phone bill, and doesn't know what to do. He is my focus. That's how I'm going to live my life. You'll never see me ever taking pictures with guys that are blowing it up. And I think that those guys deserve every accolade that they get. Guys or girls, they all deserve everything they get. It's just, they've already got it. I need to help those people who don't, you know?
You gotta help those who don't. Stephen, we got to wrap soon. We are just sitting here on our time. So but what I want to do is, because I know we've had comments and I know people like you, but I don't know that everybody knows how to get in touch with you. If you're okay with that, if they'd like to extend the conversation or maybe pick your brain. So what would be the best way for people to reach out to you or follow you?
So I'm not a guy who, believe it or not, they can reach out to me by email, of course, smason@ironcityford.com. But I'm really a guy that likes people to call me. And
are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%. And I got to tell y'all something. I will probably field per month 20 to 35 calls from people just asking, hey, what do you think about this? What is your opinion? I take every single one of them. And once again, I said it earlier, I appreciate Carrie, you saying, Steve, you came out of nowhere. You're this guy that tries to be a leader. Hey, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And it doesn't take days off. It's part of it. My cell phone is 205-234-3955. And people can call me anytime. I know that seems very, very strange. That number's listed on my LinkedIn page. I don't mind a bit. I am fully transparent in what I think that we should be doing right now to become better leaders. And I really think that somewhere down the road, it became much easier to judge than it did to lead. And I think we need to get back to leading. And
that is the best way to end it, right? It's just the best way to end it. We so appreciate you taking the time out. I mean, it was an hour, and I feel like we could have gone at least 2 hours, right?
Me and my boy Matt, man, we'll go all day.
We will go all.
Wait. Before we end, I got a question for you. What was your first car?
Man, I drove a Ford Escort that was a sled.
And I said Ford Escorts were cool when you were in high school. I thought so.
Let me tell you something.
My standards were kind of low, though.
There's not one girl in my high school that thought it was a cool car. So I really, really hate the fact that I am, give or take, 10 years older than Carrie and didn't go to high school with her. Because I would have been like, hold on, y'all are saying a girl likes my car? What was her name? I'd be following her to class.
Well, I drove a Chevrolet Citation, so a Ford Escort was like a hot car for me.
Matt, what did you drive?
I drove a salvage title. I always introduce my car as my salvage title 1983 Honda Accord. It might get out of first gear. It might not. It just depends on the day.
I have to ask y'all real quick. What did you drive in college?
Oh,
I drove a Honda Civic. Yeah, I drove a Honda Civic all through college.
How about Matt?
I was driving a 73 Volkswagen Bug. Not because it was cool, but because it was $300.
That's a hell of a deal.
I drove a Suzuki Samurai.
Oh, look at that.
And when you went up a hill, if you hit the hill at 55 miles per hour, by the time you got to the top of the hill, you were at like 35 miles per hour. It was like riding a bicycle.
I love it. I love it. Well, okay, we can continue this conversation, but I want to thank everybody who's been listening. We got tons of comments and likes and compliments. So thank you for being on. More of you are going to watch it on the replay. Stephen, I love you. You are not an ordinary person. You're extraordinary. Thanks. And I love to be around extraordinary people. Matt, any final words?
Once I've said it a million times, man. Every single time I speak to you and Matt, it just seems to make my life better. And I mean,
feel the same. I got to tell you, man, as a dude from the store, working for a cat like you is not a given. If you got an opportunity to work for somebody like you, it's like the difference between I dig the business or maybe I need to transition into something else. So I really appreciate the way that your approach. I appreciate your love to make sure that your people are eating. I love like how dedicated you are to your store and the people who are reliant upon you for, taking care of their life. So I think you're doing a great job. So thank you.
If I can close with this real quick, I would be remiss talking about our results from last month and March without saying that my entire store here, salespersons, service, my sales managers, especially Rhonda Pryor in service, no way at all that we achieved what we achieved without their hard work and dedication. And believe it or not, it doesn't necessarily start with me. My owner, Mr. Hanania, has done a phenomenal job of keeping us motivated. And I got to give him a shout out,
Kudos. I love it. It starts from the top on down.
Amen.
So thank you so much, Stephen, for being on the show. And Matt, we're going to wrap this up, but like, what did you get out of this? What's the one thing you got out of this?
I wrote it down. Okay. My man says, I'm not going to run in the face of bad times.
Yeah. Powerful.
I'm not going to run in the face of bad times. What about you?
Well, first of all, I want to give Stephen Mason a new nickname. I think we should call him Phil Jackson from now on, right? With The Last Dance coming out, he's like the coach of all coaches. So, but I think his just statement that we have to be mules.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like mules are not like the most glamorous of animals, but they serve. They serve their purpose. And I think as leaders, we have to serve. And I think that's such an important thing. It goes against kind of what many people might think. So that was powerful.
Yep, I agree. So before we sign off, we want to thank everybody who joined in. We also want to let you know that you can get more of this tomorrow. TrueCar.com/webinars for Webinar Wednesdays, hosted by our very own Ruben Fine. And that's
Ruben Fine.
Every Wednesday, you're going to get a little bit more tactical than this, but please check in for that as well. And if you haven't shared this story yet, please do. Again, the more people that we can talk to, the more people that we can help impact with Stephen's message.
And tomorrow's webinar Wednesday, if you go to TrueCar.com/webinar, is going to be on TrueCar military programs. So that's going to be an important one for the TrueCar dealers to learn about how that program works, all the OEM incentives and benefits that are unique to that program. So check that out. And also, if you want to read any articles, best practice insights, you can go to our blog at TrueCar.com/dealer-blog. Thank you, Matt. It's always fun to co-host with you. And what was that?
I was going to say, what was the name of the young lady who just made my day? Martha Alvarado?
Yeah, Martha Alvarado.
Hey, Martha
Alvarado, shout out.
if you're still watching, thank you again.
Matt, you have one fan. No, I'm joking.
Okay,
you have hundreds of fans. All right. We'll see you guys next week, next Tuesday for Industry Insider. Thanks so much for joining us.